go look at that Q&A. We're going to have an update from Mark. Everyone check that out. But to start today's town hall, today's a big day for entrepreneurs, a big day for small businesses. The SBA has opened up the PPP loans that a lot of people are talking about. And I want to go to the chair of the Silicon Slopes Economic Response Committee, Jeremy Andrus, to get an update on that. Jeremy.
Hey, Clint, this is not brought to you by Monster, but tell me who is not consuming some serious caffeine these days. It's a wacky moment in the world. Hey, so first of all, there was a lot anticipated for this day, and I think it's safe to assume that there are probably a lot of frustrated banks and small business owners. A lot of people had lined up to fill out applications and have their applications in. Few banks, and I'll be interested to hear Brock Blake's perspective on this, but it's really been a bit of a cluster. There were some late night spirited debates between the SBA and the Treasury, and some last minute changes that were made last night to the application. So I think a lot of banks right now are sort of hustling to get up to speed. I've had a good line of communication with Zions. Zions is still hopeful to be able to take applications today from business owners. They're not able to as of a few minutes ago. They are still rebuilding the application. There were a couple of changes that were made that are relevant. One was certainly that the interest rate moved from 500 basis points to 100 basis points. That was a late last minute shift. The other, which I think is certainly positive to small business owners, is that the funds will actually be issued the same day as they are approved. Again, a lot of banks are scrambling to get this up. Those who have sort of broader digital capabilities, they're going to get them up over the next 24 hours or so. And as I said yesterday, your ability to apply through a bank that does this digitally will dramatically improve your chances of at least getting funds early on. You know, Clint, there's if we've got a couple of minutes, we have aggregated some of the survey data from our first survey. I think there's some interesting tidbits that are sort of related to what entrepreneurs are feeling and this need to get federal funding in their hands.
Yes, please give us the updates. This is incredible.
Yeah. So by the way, first of all, thanks to thanks to the team that's working on this. Trent from Cicero Group has jumped in and helped. We've got some really bright sort of consumer research, consumer insight folks on our committee, and I really believe that this can be a unique source of value for the state. We'll start to publish this information next week on SlopeServes, but it's information that I think would have a lot of benefit as well to the governor's office, the senator's office, and understanding exactly what our small business owners are feeling. But let me just provide a few snippets that are important, but certainly not surprising. First and foremost, 3 weeks into this thing, small businesses in Utah are really feeling the pain. On average, they're expecting their second quarter revenue to decline by at least 50%. And if you think about, when you have fixed costs in rent and employee expense, to have your revenue go down by half, that's just a really significant hit. Most of them don't expect their businesses to fully recover until the end of 2020 or sometime in the first quarter of 2021. So I think that says something to sort of the business environment. Obviously, it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. As we plan for the worst, people start to invest and to hire and to spend less. more than 60% of our participants said that they cannot go longer than 3 months without having some sort of assistance. And actually 12% of them have already ceased operations, at least temporarily. So at number one, small business owners are suffering. Number two, and again, not surprisingly, they are confused by the stimulus. Fewer than 50% are familiar at all with the stimulus that we've been talking about on this call. I think, again, that speaks to the fact that we're early innings, but there aren't a lot of innings in this ball game if we don't get this information out to our small business owners. And so that further reinforced to our committee, there are an insufficient number of small business owners that understand the programs that are available, and we have a lot of work to do to communicate out to them. And so we're working on that. Of course, priority number one for them is access to stimulus, but priority number two, which is associated with act number one, is they need information on how to navigate this financial system. Again, we're spending night and day trying to understand it, and we've got some really bright minds around this problem. So we need to help them. The third major bucket that we learned from in the survey is that businesses are starting to adapt. Almost 100% of them have begun to alter their businesses. The products offered, the services, how they acquire customers. These are scrappy business owners, and they have very quickly responded operationally to try and bridge some of the gaps. More than a third of companies have actually already lowered prices, and that is, I guess, to some extent, that's good. They're recognizing the price sensitivity in the market. Unfortunately, lowering pricing also can be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your margins go down, your flow through decline, your ability to invest in your business goes down. So that was an interesting learning. And the other is that a few weeks into this, 10% have already instituted some headcount reductions. Unfortunately, we're going to ask that question a little bit differently, because it's not clear that furloughs would also be contemplated in that question, and we'll amend that next week. And by the way, our intent is to do a pulse survey every week. And so, it's important that, we have information that we can work with, that we can share with the governor's office, that tracks how the sentiment is changing, that tracks the gaps in information and services. And I guess perhaps most importantly is tracking who's actually finding access to federal stimulus.
And we'll publish the results and all this on slopeserves.com, right, Jeremy?
We will next week.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
We're going to bring in Brock Blake, founder and CEO of Lendio, to continue this topic. Jeremy, we might come back to you on this as well as we have this conversation, or if you want to ask Brock any questions, please do. But Brock, give us an update. You're on the front lines of this thing. You're going to want to unmute yourself. I can see that you're muted, but give us an update on everything that's happening as the CEO and founder of Lendio and the guy on the front lines of this thing.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Very little sleep last night since Treasury released the updated application last night at about 9 p.m. So most lending institutions across the country were up all night scrambling to try and be able to be open to accept accept applications today. As you most have seen, the response we're getting from most business owners as they go to their bank is that they're not quite ready. That's not surprising because the updated application happened last night. But this afternoon, we've been really excited to see we have quite a few lenders, community banks, credit unions, SBA lenders across the country that are up and running. They're processing applications and getting loans done. So there's still a lot of question marks that need to come. And I would encourage all the business owners out there that are antsy and waiting for their capital to be a little bit patient. The financial institutions that we're working with across the country are doing everything they can to process these applications as quickly as they can. But the demand, it's unbelievable. We've seen tens of thousands of borrowers come through Lendio, complete the online application, and we're distributing those to lenders all over the U.S.
Brock, and maybe Jeremy answer this as well. And I know you probably have a question there, Jeremy. I saw you unmute yourself. We have a question from the chat from those watching this. And if either of you want to answer this, the question is, if we submitted an application earlier this week, would it be wise to reapply?
Yeah, no question. Because the application, so this is what happened. The Treasury released an application on Monday or Tuesday, and then we started getting wind yesterday afternoon that actually wasn't the accurate application. And so most lending institutions, if you submitted something before last night at 9 p.m., then it was the wrong application. So last night, the Treasury released a new one, and the lenders have been scrambling today to be able to accept the new application that's been submitted. Today alone, we've set up 500 financial institutions been on webinars, getting them set up across the country to accept these applications digitally. So yeah, you need to reapply today.
Yeah, let me just add one piece of that. You need to reapply also because, and this may not be clear to small business owners. If you apply using the PDF form, it's going to take forever for that to get through the system. And so, I spoke to a number of small business owners who got the PDF form, they filled it out, they're going to get it to their bank. And that is just the wrong way to do that. I would absolutely, you do want to reapply and you do want to do it digitally. I'm watching some of the comments in the chat. There was a plug for Zions Bank, the #1 preferred SBA lender in Utah. I would just say, to the extent that you have questions, and Brock, you may have more thoughts on, how do you really find answers? What's the least friction way to get an SBA loan, to apply, to have it processed and funded, going to a preferred lender that is set up to do this? That's probably, there are a lot of lenders that are getting set up that have not historically done this, but finding those that have a history of processing these loan applications, again, it's going to get you to the front of the queue, which happens to matter now more than any time in history.
Brock, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree with his comments. A lot of to try and do the application with a PDF form and take it into your bank is probably going to be a very slow process. Most and some of the larger financial institutions that are set up to accept digital applications, they can easily submit that through their back office system called eTrans to the SBA. They'll get a confirmation back from the SBA that it's been that they've approved that application, and then they can turn around and wire more efficiently. So what's amazing about a lot of the smaller community banks and credit unions is they have this personal relationship that you can count on. The challenge is a lot of them don't have the technology solutions and the capability to accept the amount of demand that we're seeing today. And we're going to see over the next week. And so, again, a lot of these financial institutions are trying to scramble to get technology up in place. And if you can be a little bit patient, there's some other challenges that are beyond. I mean, I realize this whole call is around small businesses here in the state. There are definitely a bunch of other challenges that we're dealing with. They don't allow fintech lenders yet to participate in these loans. Most of the lenders, even the banks, don't have enough capital to actually deploy and they're not sure when that capital will be replenished. And I'll give you an example. Some lending institutions, let's say they have $100 million to deploy, which would normally be an enormous balance sheet of loans. They could go through $100 million in a matter of today or over the weekend. And then if they don't have a mechanism to go to Treasury and get reimbursed on those loans so they can replenish their capital, they're going to be stuck not being able to lend to customers that are lining up. So that's something we've been working on with the SBA and the Treasury to try and put that in place, so that lenders have the capital and it can get into the hands of business owners as quickly as possible. Every day counts.
Brock, I have a question for you that's been submitted a few times here. The question is, if we submitted our application with Lendio, how long do you think it will take to see the PPP funds?
Yeah, so we're seeing loans being funded today. We have many banks and credit unions that are online now as of this afternoon that are funding loans. So I think that if you submitted today, it should happen early next week.
Another question I'm getting is, what about companies that use a PEO for their payroll? In this case, the company doesn't file its own 941. Can they still get approved without it?
Yes, I don't know the technical answer to that question. I know they will be able to gather the payroll information from the PEO, but I don't know exactly what form they're going to have to use to document that. That's probably a question. If they can reach out to me, I can have my team who is has all these details figured out, and we can respond to them individually. So Brock at Lendio, if you want to email me, then I can get you in touch with my team to answer that question.
You want to give out your personal email there, huh? All right, Brock at Lendio.com. Get ready, my friend. I don't know if you understand what you just did.
It's already out there. It's unprecedented times right now, and we're trying to get capital in the hands of business owners. So if we have to do that to make it happen, we'll do it.
All right, I'm going to keep going because we're getting a lot of questions here in this chat on this topic. So we're going to stay on it for a second. One of them is in the documentation about the PPP loan. It references making funds available for operating costs such as rent, but there doesn't appear to be any place on the loan to list those types of expenses. The form only asks for payroll costs.
Yep, that's because the loan approval amount is only dependent on your average monthly payroll. It's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. But the loan forgiveness will come 8 weeks after you get the loan. The loan forgiveness includes your rent expenses, your mortgage interest, your payroll, and your utility cost. So what we're recommending with all the business owners that we're helping through this process is document those expenses. Make sure you have a good paperwork on those expenses. And in 8 weeks, when the loan forgiveness opportunity becomes available, you will have to actually reapply to have that portion of your loan forgiven. And you'll have to document those expenses. So that doesn't happen today. It will happen in 8 weeks from now.
Hey, Brock, just to clarify so that folks understand this, wasn't there a late interpretation that required that 75%? Actually, I'm just seeing that come up in the chat now. That 75% now has to go towards payroll, and that was a little bit amorphous at first, but now 75% has to go to payroll to get maximum forgiveness of that loan.
Yeah, that's a great point. So all those expenses come in, can be part of your loan forgiveness, but the majority of the 75% of your forgiveness will come from your payroll amount. So that's the maximum amount of the loan forgiveness that you can do, would be all the payroll expenses, and then 25% of that for any other, or a 25% increase of that for any other expenses, including mortgage and rent and so on.
I have another question for you guys, Jeremy or Brock. Can an owner of multiple businesses apply separately for each of their companies?
I'm going to defer that one to Brock.
Yeah, so each entity can have, if you have multiple businesses, each entity can get a PPP loan, even if it's the same owner. The same company cannot get two PPP loans, but different entities are able to. I'm also hearing from my team on the earlier question, the new guidelines said we can use the payroll processor records as documentation. So they're asking about the PEO and if they can use that. The answer is yes, you can.
Hey, Brock, here's a layup for you. Here's a question we got. Is it beneficial to use Lendio for an EIDL loan?
Well, well, obviously we want to say yes, but I will clarify. There's a difference between the PPP loan and the EIDL loan. The economic injury disaster loan is totally separate loan product. That one goes directly to the SBA, and there's candidly, we can help them with the application process, but it's directly through the SBA. The PPP loan, the Paycheck Protection Program, is any lender that is SBA licensed can distribute capital for those PPP loans. And that's where we're going to have more expertise and be of more help. So
as we've been on here, Brett Callanan from HSBC Bank sent me this. He sent me a text saying, our guidance to clients has been to go to whichever bank processes your payroll. It will be much more efficient. Does that sound right, Brock?
That's good guidance. I mean, it doesn't matter if the bank processes your payroll, but if it might be more efficient, because all you need to do is document your payroll, and then any lender in the country can process the loan. So the way we're prioritizing with our business owners is we're prioritizing the business owners to the lenders that can process the loans the fastest, because all the rates, the terms, the loan size, everything else is the same. And so we want to get capital into the hands of business owners most efficiently. And so we're going to take the business owners to those that are processing quickly.
I'm going to let some questions trickle in on this. So Brock and Jeremy, if you could just for a few minutes, stay on here in case we get a couple more, but I'm going to move on to our esteemed mayor of one of Utah's greatest cities. Draper City Mayor Troy Walker is with us. I want to get a sense for what's happening in Draper and, get a sense from him on how he's responding. Mayor Walker, how are you, my friend? Unmute yourself. You'll get it. There you go. How are you?
I'm doing
Mayor?
well. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. How's Draper?
It's great, all things considered.
So talk to us about, how the city is responding. How are you feeling about the state's response to COVID-19 and any assistance that the Silicon Slopes community can give you?
I think our state's responding, in a measured way that I think we've started out and I think the task force has done a good job trying to, look at it from the sort of unique facts that we have in Utah. I will say this, I do think that we are, at least in Salt Lake County, we're a little more similar in the potential for infection and sickness and disease and maybe even death than maybe some of our other rural counties. So I do really appreciate Mayor Jenny Wilson and the Salt Lake County Health Department for all the really good work they're doing. They're using hard data to make good, sound decisions. We've sort of been ratcheting up our social distancing and, orders for how to deal with our parks and those things. And so I think the evidence is pretty good that this stuff is working with respect to the social distancing. And so I'm pleased with that. I think we need to keep doing it for a while longer, and we need to maybe do it a little better. There are some areas where we can improve, primarily our young people. They are the ones that need to really take this stuff to heart. I think people my age, I guess in the 50s, we've been taking it pretty seriously. And if you look at the stats today, and that's been the case for the last 2 weeks, really since Congressman McAdams went in the hospital. The week he went in the hospital, the average age of the hospitalized folks were 55. This week it's 45. and most of the beds are consumed by people under 40, 20 to 40. So that's the area we got to focus on. But I think we need to be more vigilant about it. But we're trying to be, we've done a lot of things in Draper, like other cities. I closed our courts early on, and they got opened back up, but we had a unique, we thought we had a direct exposure thing almost on the first day that this started, that turned out not to be. So we were a little freaked out in the beginning.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Anything you need from us, please let us know. It's good to see you healthy and safe, and please remain that way, sir. It's great to see you. I want to move on to, and this is for those watching, this is a very, very important conversation during this time of so much anxiety and of social distancing, and we're all getting used to not being around each other. And, we were already in the middle of a mental health crisis before all of this started. And a lot of you know what I'm talking about when I say that. And I think it's only been exasperated over, because of COVID-19. I want to bring in my good friend, homie CEO, Johnny Hanna, to talk about this issue. He's been a leader within our community on this issue. And as I understand it, you have some things that you're going to show us, Johnny. Thanks for coming on.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for having me, Clint. Yeah, I've been a big proponent of mental health training for the last few years, and about a year ago, I rolled a program out to my company. We started with our executive team, then we trained our mid-management team, and we just rolled this out to our entire employee base. And I feel like it couldn't be a better time. But just like running, doing push-ups, yoga can help our physical health, not Jeremy's Red Bull. But we need to strengthen ourselves mentally. And there's tools that can help you do this. And what I found is that mental health training, it's the vaccine for the stress and anxiety we all have. And doing this training with our team, like all of us have had struggles throughout the year. We've had people die in our families. People have lost jobs throughout the year. There's different financial circumstances that have been our own kind of individual pandemics that we've suffered. But what I found is that peace requires increased skill, not changed circumstances. And that's part of the training that we've gone through. And this pandemic has been affecting us for years, and we've ignored it out of shame and fear. And these resources are out there. And what we found is that 8 out of 10 employees choose not to use these resources out of shame and fear. And the truth, according to Johns Hopkins University, is that 1 in 4 of us on any given year have a diagnosable mental health disorder. And so it's time for us to, unite, come forward, and just speak openly and validate each other. I've been on the phone with multiple CEOs that have questioned themselves. They're like, Johnny, hey, if I let people go, I'll be a bad CEO. Or, if my company, has to do any cuts in salaries, then that means we're not a strong company. And these are the things we start to tell ourselves mentally. And that's when we can really spiral. And it's so important for us to validate ourselves, knowing that we're working from home and little kids are coming in, interrupting us, or our wives interrupting us. Like, we're not working from home. We are at home, and we're now homeschooling our kids, and it's hard. And that's the truth. I think you have to give yourself a break. You have to be able to take a step back and just, refresh and look at it from a distance, and just see that this is a very difficult time we're going through, and there are tools out there that can help you. And I want to, provide as many resources as possible. I think, Clint, I'm not sure what the best way to do that is, but on LinkedIn, you can reach out to me. I'll also share my email, follow Brock's lead, johnny@homey.com. But there's so many amazing trainings. And again, this has been a pandemic for a long time, but now we're just united with this coronavirus and the economy. So it's a time to really, get together and work together.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you giving out your personal email. It means a lot. This is again, like, this is a really trying time for so many folks. Appreciate your leadership here.
Yeah, my my grandfather passed away on Friday, and I had to attend his funeral via YouTube. And so many people are going through new circumstances like that, and we just have to see each other in a different light, and not be so judgmental. Be more compassionate and validate each other. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
I love you, my friend. Stay healthy, stay safe. So as everyone knows at this point, at least I hope you know, Silicon Slopes, through the Slope Serves initiative, launched testutah.com yesterday, to what I think has been a astounding success, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. I want to point people, because we may not get to all of the questions around testutah.com, although we're going to try to get to as many as we can. I want to point people to a live Q&A I did right before this town hall. It's published on all Silicon Slopes' social media channels. That goes in pretty big depth on how testutah.com came about. But we have updates. We have fresh updates from the Silicon Slopes Health Committee Chair, Mark Newman. Mark, give us an update.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks, Johnny, for sharing that. It's a hard time, and each of us are doing hard things and dealing with hard things. That it's hopeful and helpful that other people have been through things like this before, and I just encourage you to go talk to people about it, and most importantly, talk to people about it. Just as many therapy calls as anything else, as we want to go through it. Okay, on a broader note, so we launched testutah.com yesterday. Kind of typical updates broadly. The state and the environment, like we're trending up. We're doing about 1,200-1,500 tests a day currently inside the state, and we have obviously cases go up. You saw today, Angela presenting about 176 new cases inside of Utah. We aren't tracking towards that New York curve anymore. That's huge. But we are kind of trending in the same cluster as a lot of other states around us. And we just have to keep doing what we can to crush the curve. There's obviously an in-depth QA for everyone. And I'd encourage you to go watch it. We have, sorry, I just got an update that was much bigger news than I expected. We have this update. So what we essentially built is an entire funnel to how to broadly assess the entire state, or anyone that wants to be assessed, or anyone that wants to be assessed multiple times. First responders, healthcare workers, high-risk individuals, different groups, you name it. I'd invite you to take that assessment. If things change for you, take it again and kind of go through that whole process. We're having this broad funnel for Test Utah. Then from there, it's proceed to, identified individuals proceed to the assessment. And then they schedule an in-person slot, and then this goes across our mobile sites. This is highly automated, which has been the saving grace on throughput. We're only good at executing tests as we are as we are on running people through it. And I'd implore anyone in your families, in your community, in your group, anyone that takes it, please show up, because one slot that's taken that isn't used is another slot that someone can't take. Okay. It's been an absolutely wild 24 hours since we launched this. And like the governor, Lieutenant Governor, Chris Cox, other people did a phenomenal job going through here. And the Silicon and Slope Serves in the Silicon Slopes community has really helped drive a lot of visibility. We have done, and this number now is wrong on the numbers that are even bigger, but it's been a wild 24 hours. In 24 hours, we've had 35,000 plus assessments completed, 2,600 appointments scheduled, and let me just get this final number. Yeah, 2,600 appointments scheduled and 800 plus completed drive-throughs. And the completed drive-throughs are people that go and take tests. Now, there's obviously more deeper depth on here. We're protecting, obviously, a very heavy protection on HIPAA, private data, you name it, for any individuals. The state has a lot deeper analytics as well as part of our partnership together. This is to see and to feel and to know, like, we're moving, and we're moving fast. It took any state weeks and weeks to ramp up to this type of volume, and we've done this in 24 hours. The Test Utah Challenge, first off, is hilarious and is amazing at the same time. Great job, Clint, on pushing that out. I'd invite anyone, and frankly, extra points for creativity. Some of the fun ones so far have been Rudy Gobert, Tony Finau, and Senator Romney. You know, just go for it. That's all I'd implore you. Just go for it. Get the word out. Push it. Get people to talk about it. Get people to try it. And even though I can't say I'm a fan of any one school, I'm going to say Coach Kalani Sitake so far completely takes the cake for winning so far the Crush the Curve Challenge. He is, I'd invite you to go watch it. It is a Sinatra-esque minute of amazingness. We've had a lot of questions around locations and what our approach is here for strategy around getting more people tested. Our entire goal here is to bring abundant, accessible, no-cost testing to anyone that wants it in the state. So far, we are at Timpanogos Hospital and Provo Town Center. The teams there are incredible and doing a terrific job. Next week, we're rolling out the airport, a location in Heber, a location in South Ogden, and a location, we believe, in Washington City. We're figuring out right now how do we partner with kind of the other testing organizations, IHC and ARUP, where we put tents, where we put people. Do we add, does IHC or someone take like a Washington City and we cover Lehigh? Do we, do more inside of Logan? Do we add another in Park City, et cetera? This is a moving target. We're trying to address where activity is, where hotspots are, and where people need the most access. There's others coming soon. I just want to say, like, we're moving as a state. We're moving as a team. There's probably 100 different people at least that are coming together on our initiative currently. We're actually trying to now staff up an organization for field services and support. And if there's any nurses in your family who had their school year cut short and still need to go get their clinical hours, have them reach out, because we could have them potentially get that clinical hours through some of the work that they're doing at these various hospitals or testing sites. We are going to stop at nothing to get to 3,000 plus a day. Crazy things across the supply chain, activity levels, people, you name it. The energy is amazing. Thank you for all your support. We're all exhausted from this week, but there's seven days in a week and 24 hours in a day, and we plan on using up every single one of them until everyone in Utah is tested. We can do this. Thanks. Any questions from anyone or Clint?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
So one question that we just got is, who do we contact if we want to volunteer and help?
Slopeserves.com. There's a volunteer tab on there. Best place to go. Ben on your team is coordinating that. That's the best spot. And to be frank with everyone, we are still working out some kinks here. We take feedback welcome in an open fashion, welcome fashion. We're going to keep updating, keep iterating here. And so, yeah, any feedback and ideas are terrific.
Okay, here I want to go through some of this, and when we've had some, as any rollout of anything would be, Mark. As you know, there's bumps in the road, and as you said, let's we're asking for some patience as we're spinning this thing up. One of the bumps at the beginning of the launch here was around this. I don't even know what you'd call it. This disclaimer that we put on the website that's now been taken down. Mark, I've answered this question a number of times throughout the day on social media, and again, I would encourage people to look at the Q&A that we did today that goes into detail on this. But just briefly, can you talk about how the data is being used that's coming in through testutah.com?
So the companies involved in the survey assessment and data, let's get clear, is SafeLane, Qualtrics, my experience building HireVue. We used enterprise grade content and software with HIPAA certification and take privacy insanely seriously. Like, there is no messing around on this. So the data that gets put into the system is kept incredibly securely. There was a terms and conditions on the website separate from the assessment because we integrated them both in. That was copied over from a template site that we'd used as a base for it. So we took those down. This is all party to the Utah Department of Health privacy policy. We maintain FedRAMP certification. We maintain HIPAA certification. All data is private. We take that incredibly seriously.
Okay, so that answers the data question. Again, I go even deeper on that Q&A. Everyone, make sure you tune into that. Here's an interesting question that I've been getting a lot over the past 24 hours. Why are we doing this, Mark?
I mean, like in what context? Like, why is Slope Serves doing it compared to anyone else?
Yeah.
You know, we all have family members at risk. We have in-laws, parents, grandparents, children, spouses that are we're expecting babies here soon, you name it. And I felt when we kicked into this that sure, we could sit around and twiddle our thumbs, or we could step up and see if we could do anything about this. What I've seen is we can. And I believe that the idea that everyone should embrace, whether they're starting a business, working at a company, in a community, and you name it, isn't to just defer and expect someone else to take care of it. The only way we get out of this is if every single person puts their shoulder to the wheel and does something. Don't just tweet about it. Don't just write about it. Don't just rant about it. Don't do that about it. Roll up your sleeves and go get something done. And I really appreciate like the fact that like we a couple weeks ago started on this problem of could we get everyone in Utah tested? And we got laughed at around like, absolutely not. Maybe 200 a day, maybe 100 a day, maybe this. And every single barrier that we had in front of us, we have tried to crash down and break down. So I guess, you know, why are we doing this? Because someone has to. And we are here to support the amazing health systems that were so beneficial to have here in Utah, all the doctors and providers, dentists, you name it, that are trying to figure out how to run their practice. We're here to support Utah as a state to get back to work. And we are doing what we can to help in the most meaningful way possible, is to rebuild the trust in the community as fast as we can in really novel ways to get this thing going and back again. So, you know, I think we'll look back on it and be like, you know, why are we doing this? Well, maybe someone raised their hand and said yes, and here we are.
Well, I can tell you somebody raised their hand and said yes, and here we are. I know for a fact that's how this happened. Mark, here's another thing, and this one's kind of on us on the rollout in terms of some miscommunication. You know, there were some who took the announcement yesterday as you know, the state calling Silicon Slopes to run testing sites that were already going to be spun up. Which you know, I think the exact opposite happened. These two testing sites that are currently open in Utah County, and the ones that you mentioned on that slide that will be open in the future, would not be open were it not for the efforts of folks like you and so many people within the Silicon Slopes community, with the partnership with the state, the collaboration with the hospitals we're working with, the doctors. I mean, like you said, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people working tirelessly around the clock with this. But the question I keep getting is, are we taking state, and I know the answer, and again, like watch the Q&A that I did on this, but the question is, are we taking state resources and using them for these tests? Like, are we taking resources away from what's already existing to spin up tests over here and taking away things from, can you see what I'm saying, right? There was like this sentiment as though the Silicon Slopes community was taking resources away from the state and from these other folks who were these incredible folks, by the way, who are already testing and doing a phenomenal job doing it. It was as though the government was taking those resources away from those folks so that Silicon Slopes could also do it, which as I know, the exact opposite happened. We had to go out and get all the resources for this. But can you touch on that for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely not. You know, in this regard, we have done everything we can to magnify the amount of testing and opportunity inside the state, and brought online sources and supply chains and people and products that never existed before or available for to anyone inside of the state. Let's get very clear on that. Everything we has added in. This is not a zero-sum game where we're going and just like pulling someone else's candy away and we're playing it in that part of it. Now, we've had to deal with kicking in the sand because people were saying that I should have a monopoly position around doing something in this state. And entirely, and I'll take this to the end of my days, think that's bullshit. So, frankly, we're here to help. We are here to add. We are contributing. We are magnifying the efforts. And if that wasn't the case, then, we couldn't really show like the points on the board that we've put up. Bringing to the table tens of thousands or actually millions of masks, tens of thousands of face shields and gloves and you name it. We've tried to magnify and add and bring and add to the efforts of the existing states. Also, much like how money has been created in thin air as part of the CARES Act and kind of going and doing that, we did not take resources, cash or money out of other people's pockets or programs. What I am grateful for in terms of taking money out of other people's pockets is that any Utahn who takes our assessment, comes and takes the test, will not be asked for an insurance card, will not be given a bill, and will not walk away with that.
Well, I want to double click on that real quick, Mark, because again, I think, and this is entirely on us. Somehow yesterday we forgot to mention that these tests at testutah.com sites are free.
Yeah, completely free. Like,
I don't know how we forgot to mention that. Like, I think we just, took that for granted that people would assume that. I don't know. All the other testing sites, I think it's around $100 to $200 to get tested. Like, we roll out this thing and we forget to mention a pretty critical piece, which is they're free.
Yeah, completely free. And so, all I would ask, I appreciate the questions. I appreciate, we want to make sure we have rigorous programs are doing the right thing for Utah. But I also want people to look up and say, let's be helpers here, and go after it. And we'll answer any questions from anyone as we want to go through it all. We're doing our absolute best to run as fast as we can on here. We may not have it all together, but together we can have it all.
Mark, I have some more questions for you.
All right.
They're coming in hot. Why were these tech people needed to create a new supply chain? Can you explain why? Like, again, and I want to be very clear with everyone. We're as shocked as you are that we're in the middle of this. I think that's important to state that Silicon Slopes is as shocked as anyone else that we're in the middle of all this, but here we are, and there's more tests in Utah today than there was yesterday because of it. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah. But can you talk about how this happened? And why we were in the middle of it, because I think the supply chain piece of this is critical for people to understand.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, it's not just the tech community like this, the Slopes guys. It's Bio Utah and the entire biotech sector as part of the state. It's what we did wasn't just a bunch of tech guys. What we did was mobilize the private sector, and what we asked for was creativity brought to the table. So think about, here's the easiest way to think about it in the eyes of kind of the traditional healthcare system, okay? So think of how lost each one of us have been when we wanted to order something and Amazon.com said in the last few weeks, we can't get it to you for like 3 weeks. Like, internalize that for a second. And someone said to you, well, can't you just go to the store for that? And you looked at them like they were crazy. Like, in terms of the traditional nature of the people on this call, where we order, how we order, what we do, that's been completely upended in the last number of weeks. We've never had the experience of going to a grocery store with empty shelves, okay? Now picture you're the healthcare industry. For the last 40 years, you have bought from the same providers generally, right? The same wholesalers, the same pharmacy benefit managers, the same this. And that system has built an incredible system. Those are great companies that are doing this. There's been natural evolutions around, if I need something, someone else will have it for me, they'll lend it to me, I'll replace it back across emergency groups. Well, what happened is the resiliency that wasn't built into that system was the possibility that what if everyone had nothing? Like, think about, like, truly internalize this for a second. What if that actually was a zero-sum game because all of you had the same approved provider, the same approved suppliers, all of them were out? What do you do? Now, what we benefited from in our group and the group that we were able to mobilize across Utah, like I said, in the Bio Utah membership and in the Silicon Slopes membership and other groups like this across the community, was it wasn't a zero sum in our supply chains. The Utah Manufacturing Association has members that have dozens of manufacturing facilities across the world. Do they create the product exactly as we need it? No, but do they have the connections to the people that do and the ability to navigate the import rules and customs and you name it? We had nutraceutical firms step up to the plate to try to drive on medication packaging with capsulator machines and contractors. We had, enormous amounts of innovation now coming out. We've all seen the scuba mask ventilators and like the Bain style, the N95 masks that go 5x over. So the supply chain in that regard was, we took what was a very traditional, call it 50 or 100 source supply chain, and made it 10,000. And we did it fast, 24 hours a day. And that was an edge. That's how the best companies in the world do it. And we were able to mobilize that on a state basis. The other thing we did on our tests was, we keep talking about open sourcing. We made it that we had low cost test element components to it. We were able to partner with Co-Diagnostics and other companies here locally to be able to pull that off, had high volumes available, and cross-validated against each other. So we weren't stuck with only this, using this, then with this machine. And then the last part, and we need to give this team an award. There's a guy named Ryan Hyde who has helped us tweak the machines as if all the hardware engineers on this call would go tweak GPU processors and supercomputers. We figured out on PCR machines that we only needed the first 23 minutes versus the next 31 minutes. And we rewrote the firmware to optimize for the test and got it validated and approved. I mean, these are the types of innovations that didn't exist. And we can't we're not trying to say we're geniuses for it by any means. We just had 24/7, here's a barrier that comes up, let's go knock it down. And so I would say to everyone, it wasn't about, oh, we had to solve it for it. We just empowered people that weren't being empowered before, and we got cranking.
And it isn't like tech guys going rogue. You know what I mean? Which I've seen on Twitter a few times, as though like we're just out in front of everyone, and we're not doing this in partnership and in conjunction with the state of Utah and with so many partners, all of whom are listed on testutah.com. I mean, this has been a Herculean effort by the state, by the Silicon Slopes group, and the companies that make up that Silicon Slopes group under the leadership of Mark, and so many incredible people inside of this. This is not, and again, this is a failure on our part that we're talking about this, 24 hours later, the fact that it's free, the fact that it's not just, tech guys, we're going for, because that's what we do. We're entrepreneurs. We just go fast and we forget things along the way. But I think it's critical for people to understand this. Another question, that I'm getting a lot, Mark, and, I mentioned this at a press conference, is around like who's going to make money off of this, and I want to be clear about what I mean when I say people making money, and what we mean by like if somebody would take a profit, because of course there's going to be money exchanging hands from all of the different partners so that we can staff up, so that we can have the resources, the equipment, all that type of stuff. But can you talk about what we mean by like nobody's making a profit on that, or clarify, or help clean up whatever I may have said?
Yeah, let's get clear. There are costs on facilitating all of this: tents, generators, heat, electricity, people, cones, security, public safety, tests, swabs, test kits, extraction kits, machines, you name it. We are getting best and lowest price across every one of these elements. We're saying, listen, Utah is home and we need to get home back to work. You need to be able to run your business, but there will be no profiteering. There will be no, kind of on this dynamic. We're delivering this at a, if you think of a tent running, full tilt at 500 tests a day, and, an all-in cost of, I don't know, $40 inclusive of like labor, like every single piece, hardware, security, you name it, compared to going to a traditional place and having a $200 or $300 bill for it. I think we're doing the best we can. We're going to keep extracting costs out. I mean, today, even with one of our suppliers, We, went through margin, discussed kind of where it is, discussed the workflow, discussed what we could get rid of, how we can kind of do that. And we wanted to pull back another couple bucks just on that single unit that we were going to do this.
This isn't, if we were going to try to make money, I don't know that this is the business we'd get in.
If we were going to
Right.
try to make money, we would tune this up as fast as we can and go sell it to New York. Let's get very clear on that. What we're actually doing here is trying to bring Utah back to work, because the money we save doing the faster we do this, the lower cost we do it, the more we can spend on getting Utah back going again.
And I'm not dismissing the question. I think the question is wonderful. And I wonder if others who are doing testing are getting the same question when it costs, $150, $200 at these other spots. But we have a commitment that nobody's trying to make a profit off of testutah.com. And I think that's critical in all this. This is the best of Utah, locking arms and going forward together to try to solve this problem for Utahns and get every Utahn who wants to be tested. I want to, and we don't have a lot of time, but you've actually got to go on a TV show, Mark. You've become famous here in a second.
That's right.
But
Good call.
but real quick on this, why it's important to take the assessment, even if you don't have symptoms. Why it's important to go to testutah.com to take the assessment. Can you give an answer there?
Yeah, Utah's going to be the first and the best in the nation at understanding what's going on in our community and our population. Like, look at the surveys that are going out on the economic side, and this is on the health side. Even if you don't have symptoms, go and do it. They might change over time. Go do it again. All of this is massively informative statistics and data for us. What we want to be doing is understanding and finding the positives, because we need to support them. We need to take care of them. We need to help them quarantine. Then we need to figure out all the places they've been to make sure that we didn't have kind of spreads, and you name it. So take the assessment no matter what. And if we, over the next 60 days, have millions of people that have taken the assessments, think of how much we will learn and know compared to any other place in the nation. And take it over time, take it again, take going through it all. Data is what's going to guide us here, and it's going to be helpful. So let's just go for it. That's an exhausted answer, but frankly, take the assessment. It's good for everybody.
I want to end with this, and I think it's important to just reemphasize, without the efforts of Mark and Nomi Health and all the partners at testutah.com and everybody who's come and rallied around this effort. And I know that sometimes when certain folks will watch this, they'll think it's just like us congratulating ourselves and congratulating these companies, and it's all about the logos that are on whatever is posted, but it's not. I mean, there's 2 testing sites in Utah County now because of these efforts. 800 tests today. Over 35,000 people have been assessed. We brought in millions of masks, thousands of face shields, swabs. All these hospitals and other providers are running out of swabs, and they're coming to us because we figured out this supply chain. And that's not to pat anyone on the back here, other than to say we're in this together. And if you can roll up your sleeves, my goodness, roll up your sleeves and let's get to work. I don't know why we wouldn't do this. I think we'll take all the arrows and all of the criticism and all the things that come our way to get more Utahns tested. All Utahns, in the entire state, from Logan all the way down to St. George, everywhere in between, deserves to be tested. I get emotional when I think of how amazing the folks who have rallied around this initiative have been, and what we've accomplished so far and what we're going to accomplish, because testing saves lives. As I understand it, we're averaging less than 2,000 tests a day in the state of Utah. And every expert we talk to says it needs to be up to 7,000 to 8,000 a day. And testing and social distancing is what is going to get this done. And without the efforts of so many people in this community who I've had the privilege and honor And I'm just so humbled to have had a front row seat to it, to see the work they're doing tirelessly. I don't know that anybody slept. I don't know that anybody's slept at all since we've done this, and I will defend them, and I will defend these efforts with our last dying breath as an organization and personally, because I think it's worth it. I think the testing that we're doing here is worth it. I think if the experts are telling us get to 7,000 to 8,000 tests a day, let's get to 6,000 to 7,000 to 8,000 tests a day, and let's not stop. Let's not stop. Let's roll up our sleeves. It's time. We're Utahns. This is what we do. This is a unique challenge that we'll remember for the rest of our lives. And we're here as an organization and as a community to lock arms virtually because we can't touch each other, and talk about what we're doing, and come together as a community. And now is the time to do that. And I'm so grateful. I really am so grateful for so many of you who are watching this, who have been a part of testutah.com getting it launched. I mean, we bought the freaking website on Saturday and we launched it on Thursday. I mean, that is unbelievable progress. I'm so grateful that there's more testing in Utah. I want more testing in Utah. I want to thank all of you for everything you're doing. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay home, and let's roll up our sleeves. Let's roll up our sleeves. Thank you so much.